I'm David Miller from Datacolor, and we're going to do a quick demonstration of how to build a printer profile for an Epson R800 using Datacolor Spyder3Print. The equipment we have set up here is a laptop running Spyder3Print, an Epson R800 printer, and the Datacolor 1005 Spectro. We're going to start by running Spyder3Print. I've already launched the software, and I'm going to skip ahead to the screen that lets me print a target color sheet to take measurements from. Skip to profiling process. And I will print the 225 patch color sheet. This is the most commonly used target and the simplest one to build a profile from. So the first thing I have to do is just do quickly a page setup for the Epson to make sure that I've selected the right printer. So we will select Epson R800, letter size, which is correct. This is the target we're going to print. I can get a quick preview of it, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just going to go ahead and print it. So I will say print target. And now the key here is I have to print the target with color management turned off. So in OS X, I go to print settings. This is going to vary from printer driver to printer driver. And I'll pick a paper type here. And I'm just going to choose, for a little example, enhanced matte. And I have to set up color management correctly. I don't want to use automatic. So I want to print the target at the quality that I will be doing my prints at. So I will pick best photo, high speed is fine, we don't need gloss optimizer for that. And then the other key setting here is I have to go into the color management dialog and say no color adjustment. And then print. Simple as that. Okay, here comes our target print on the Epson R800 on enhanced matte paper. So these take a couple of minutes to print. Okay, we're back. So we finished printing the target sheet, and now we're going to take measurements from it, which will take me about 5 minutes start to finish. We go to the next screen, and we're now on the screen that asks us to calibrate the Spectro itself. This is not calibration for the printer, this is calibration for the Spectro. So we need to put the Spectro down into the calibration base so that its nose is sitting flush on the white calibration tile, just the way that this picture shows. And this is how we do it. We put it into the base, just like that. And then we push down on the nose to calibrate it. And we're done. Now we're ready to take measurements. So how do we do this? We will create a measurement file to save the numbers into. So we do save measurements to, and we give it a file name. We'll just say Epson R800. And we'll say OK. And now it's ready to read 225 patches. So we click the Read Patches button, and this tells us here that we will be reading 225 patches into a special template for this. Read Patches. We get a window that shows us the complete grid of colors that we're going to be measuring. And I will switch the display tool mode so that I can see only the measured colors. This makes it a little bit easier for me to see what I'm measuring instead of being distracted by those placeholder colors in the upper left corners of these. So I'll switch to measured, and it's all blank because we haven't measured anything yet. And now I will take my target and I will start measuring. I'm going to measure the target. Now it's important when I'm measuring, when I have this target sitting on any kind of table, there's going to be some color always at the table that's underneath, and here we've got a light brown. So what you always should do is put 2 blank sheets of the same kind of paper that you've printed the target on underneath to keep the light from the Spectro from bouncing off a colored surface underneath, coming back up through the paper, and affecting the colors that you're measuring that way. So 2 blank sheets underneath, and I'm all ready to start measuring, and I'll start doing it. So it's as simple as this. I will go across and just push the button on each patch as I go over, and it's as fast as this. And as I'm measuring, you can see that in the measurement window on the screen, these measurements are coming up and they're being shown in the window. And now I'm starting on the next set of 5 rows. This is where the reds start. And I'll keep going across and doing these. You can see on the screen that we've gotten further into this. It's only taken me a minute to get here. We've completed taking all of our measurements, and this is what the screen looks like when we're done. Now we want to do a quick check to make sure that we don't have any mistakes in the measurements that we took. Now, how do we do that? We can toggle the screen back and forth between the pure colors. These are the placeholders for what we think we were supposed to be measuring. And they look like that. They're brighter and they're more saturated, but this isn't how the printer prints. And then we can go back to measured and see the actual measurements that we took. And you can see that as we flip back and forth, I can use the keyboard to do this even faster. We can go from here to here and back and forth again. And we will just eyeball these quickly to make sure that we don't have any strange patch measurements that stand out. We don't want to see any measurements that are a lot lighter than their neighbors, that are absolutely the wrong color, where the color flips to something strange. And so we'll just look at each region of the color chart just to make sure that what we basically see is everything darkening here, but nothing other than that happening. And this looks okay, so this is a good set of measurements. And so we'll just close the window up. And now the final step is to build a profile from these measurements. So I'll click Next again. And we'll give it a profile name, and we'll use the default name that the program gives us, which is just Epson R800, which is the same name as the measurement set file. And we will just click. We will leave all of these sliders alone. These are the flavoring sliders that you can use to build different variations of a profile. But most people who are building a profile will just want to build with all of these sliders set at their default position, which is in the middle at 0. All we need to do is click the Next button. And it will spend just a few seconds building a profile from those measurements, and we're done. So we now have a printer profile. Now we can preview, soft proof, a set of basic images through the profile directly here inside of Spyder3Print. This is called the Spyder-Proof screen, and it shows us a grid of 16 test images that we can view on the screen with soft proofing through the printer profile as a sample of how it might change, make slight changes in the colors in the print when you print. And if we want to, we can also print these images as a test on the R800. If I turn soft proofing off, we'll see almost no difference in the color in the image, but in some parts of the image you may see some changes. If I click in and get a larger view of one of these images, if I go to the image with the peppers, for instance, I can click and go in one more level, like this. Now we're just looking at the peppers. And this image has a set of color bars over on the side of it. If I turn soft proofing on, you can see these will darken slightly. This basically shows you that this is how these greens are going to print when they actually go out to the printer. The printer isn't capable of printing these lighter, more saturated, unsoft-proofed greens here, for instance. It's just not capable of doing that with its ink set. So when you actually print through the profile, these greens will end up being darker because this is basically the ink color of the printer for maximum green. So this is how you soft proof through Spyder-Proof. And I can do a test print here if I wanted to, and I can click large preview and get this in a larger window and see it that way if I wanted to. Now, how do you use this profile inside of Photoshop? Soft proofing in Photoshop. This is an example of how to soft proof and then print through a profile that you've just built in Photoshop. You open an image, and here I've opened one of our sample sets of images, and go into Proof Setup, Custom, and then you select the printer profile. And there's a lot in my list. This is the one that I just built from the set of measurements we took, Epson R800. And I can turn preview on and off, and as I toggle preview, and if you look at those 4 images on the screen, you can see how there are slight changes in brightness and color when I turn on preview, which is basically soft proofing through the printer profile. I will say OK, and now I know that inside of Photoshop, this is what the print is going to look like when I print through the profile. And I can now make slight tweaks, whatever kinds of adjustments that I want to make to the image before I'm going to print it. I can see directly here on the screen what those changes are going to look like in the print. Now when I want to print through the profile, I'll go print, and I'll change my orientation, nicer that way. This is how you select the profile for printing. In the color management side of Photoshop's print dialog, you say Photoshop manages colors. So this way Photoshop, in here inside of Photoshop, we can pick the printer profile. And we will pick the printer profile here. And so again, we'll scroll down till we find the profile that we just built, FSNR 800. Set the rendering intent to saturation, which is our recommended starting rendering intent for printing through our profiles. And then say print. And in the Epson print dialog, we have to do the same setup that we did when we originally printed the target a few minutes ago. We have to go into print settings, and we have to choose the same kind of paper that we printed the target on, and we have to set the printing mode the same that we had before when we printed the target. So best photo is the way that we had it set up before. And finally, we also have to make sure the color management is turned off. So we come back in here, we say off, and it's done. And then when we click print, it will start coming out on the printer, and we'll get perfect print through our profile.